Hello and welcome to Kramer's Corner. It is Monday the 6th of January, and since we are in a new year, I think it's a good idea to have a look at what's going on in the semiconductor markets, and it will both be US semiconductors and a couple of European ones where there is some interesting patterns and developments in the market. And today we'll start with Nvidia, of course, the biggest one of them all in terms of market share. Closed yesterday above the cloud, and here pre-market we are up another 2.7%, just around 148.40. And if we can get the RSI to close above 60 threshold by the end of the day, well, it will confirm bullish trend, and I believe it will. So if it also takes out the previous all-time high at 152.89, well, then there is potential much higher. On the weekly or medium term, excuse me, on the medium term, there is massive divergence on the RSI, but we are still in a positive sentiment. And if RSI can close above the upper falling trend line here, well, then there is a potential much higher for the Nvidia stock. And we can guesstimate. It's just guesstimate basically, because really targets are not that interesting. But if we can guesstimate, say, okay, if it takes out the previous all-time high, well, 162.80 should be minimum, but there's potential up to around 170. For this bullish picture to be demolished, well, a close below 108.28.74 is a minimum requirement. There is some support here at 131.60, but close below this area here, well, then this entire bullish picture will be demolished. Moving on to AMD, or Advanced Micro Devices, that has formed this very steep falling wedge-like pattern or channel-like pattern that it could break out of. There's divergence here on the daily RSI, as you can see, and if it does break above the falling trend line here, falling trend line, well, then there's potential higher up to, well, at least around 140, I would say. We can also here guesstimate it a bit and say, okay, if that's the case, we could see up to the 38.2 retracement and the 55 moving average coming down here, kind of putting a lid on. So there will be some very strong resistance in this area around 140. The divergence here on the RSI indicates that we are in a downtrend exhaustion, and also we did get a lower lows there. So if it can move above 127.5, well, then we have the let's see, 127.5, and here pre-market we are actually above that 128.80 we are trading at the moment, so that we are establishing a bullish trend short term. Medium term still very much under pressure, so let's see if it's short-lived or long-lived. AMAT, or Applied Material, closed yesterday, Friday, above the falling trend line here. And pre-market, we are up a further to 3%, 175 in this region here. And it seems like we also have a downtrend exhaustion mode. And I think we will see it pushing higher towards 180, maybe higher. But what is key, it actually needs to get back above the cloud area here to have any meaningful uptrend potential. So there will be some resistance levels, and we can actually plot them in. We have a minor one here that is currently being tested here, and will be tested at the open. If it can close above the 174.43, well, then there's potential up to 185.70, and then it will be really interesting, because that's possibly also where the 60 threshold on the RSI will be tested. Can it get back above 60 threshold or not? If it can, well, then there is suddenly established a bullish picture. If it slides back and closes below the falling trend line here and takes out the lows here from last week at 161.97, well, then downtrend is likely to resume. ARM Holdings has been under very much pressure since it formed this top reversal pattern doji evening way back in sometime around June, July. Massive sell-off, trying to bounce back. Now here we have it's in the cloud, closing Friday in the cloud. Here pre-market up about 1%, 142.40. If it can close back above the cloud, and especially above this 146.64, and RSI can get back above 60 threshold, then we can establish a bullish trend that could take it up to 156.40, where there's a little bit of resistance, but it could establish a bullish trend in general. If it fails to do so, if it fails to close above the cloud area and it fails to close above 146.64, and especially if RSI is being rejected 60 threshold, then it will slide, most likely slide back lower. Broadcom is in this corrective mood or pausing mood here after this major gap up here back mid-December. It is in a bullish trend, however, both medium term and short term. On the daily chart, we can see there's no divergence on the RSI, indicating likely new highs. And as long as it can stay above, let's just draw a support line here, 211, well, then I will say we are still in a bullish trend. Medium term on the weekly, massive divergence on the RSI. But if it can get its act together, and here pre-market be up about 0.7%, 234.5. Well, so it's still in this area here. If it starts taking out this little spike up here at 247.28, then I think we'll see new all-time highs pushing higher. And if RSI also gets above this upper falling trend line here, then we're likely to see new highs for Broadcom. If it takes out 200 level, well, then there could be a selling pressure trying to close this gap area. I don't think it will happen, but let's see. This is the level to look out for. Micron Technology has been suffering for quite some time, but has found support here at the previous lows here in September at 84 level, tested a couple of times. I think here in the next couple of days it will try to close the gap up to around 95.77. Here pre-market we up about 5% at 94.57. So very close to, I would say, and I think it will close above. If it does, and if RSI can close above 60 threshold, well, then there's potential higher, but there's a strong overhead resistance in this area around 100 and 105. We have the 100 moving average coming down. We have the 55 coming down, giving some resistance. So it will be a struggle, but if it can close above the resistance there, then there is potential higher. Medium term, as we can see, is really under pressure. We will still be under pressure, even if it comes out to around 100, 185 will be below the 55 moving average. It's actually bouncing from the 100 weekly moving average, but it is not the strongest. But up 5% here pre-market. Let's see where it ends today. Well, Qualcomm can't really make smart. I mean, we are still in a bearish trend. Negative sentiment, no divergence on the RSI. Pre-market we're up about 1% at 159.5. So for established just slightest bullish trend, it needs to close above 159.56 and can do that, but there will be some strong overhead resistance. And I haven't drawn many trend lines here because it's really hard to detect anyone. We have here 165, where we also have the 100 moving average, and we have the 55 declining here. So really, I don't see any upside potential at all unless it can close above 165. And then the next one will be the cloud area here. That will be key. Can it get above that? And the cloud is 167.53 at the moment. So 165, it will be a struggle. If it takes out the lows here from last week at 152.79, well, then expect it to slide lower. Weekly on the medium term, bearish trends, negative sentiment on the RSI, potential lower. So there's really a race going on between these semiconductors. Some of them are fairly strong, some of them are quite weak. But maybe Nvidia and some of the stronger ones can pull some attention to the other semiconductors and put a little bit of money into them. And let's see about it. It's really a struggle for some of them. Super microcomputer. Well, it's been extremely volatile. Can it establish a bullish trend? What is interesting to note is that the RSI is still in a positive sentiment. It has bounced off the 40 threshold. And if Super Micro can move back above the cloud, back above the 55 moving average, and that will be key. If RSI can get back above 60 threshold, well, then there's potential for another bullish move and to take out the peak here at $48. ever. It is a little bit, it will be strong as we can see 100 coming down and the 55 also putting a pressure on it. So that will be key. What is interesting also note, I have highlighted this candle here. It closed above the cloud, so we are technically above the cloud. We are now in a neutral position. It didn't close below the cloud, but I would like to get it back above to believe that the uptrend is established in Supermicro and actually has resumed. If it takes out the lows here from last week around 29.90, well, then I think it will collapse back to the 25.20 level. Weekly, we'll see how much it collapsed. I mean, it really was a bubble that collapsed, very clear bubble pattern, actually took out the lows over here from 2023, but has bounced strongly since, but it's really struggling. Keep an eye on these levels here, as I mentioned, above the cloud and above the RSI above 60. Taiwan Semiconductor or TSM closed yesterday higher, establishing a bullish trend. Well, actually confirming its bullish trends. We see higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and so on and so on. It is a very strong signal to send. Remove this one, it's obsolete now. Positive sentiment on the RSI confirmed by closing back above 60 threshold, and here pre-market we are up about 5% at 218.53. So really a strong move there. It's actually a new all-time high on TSM. Really strong move indeed, and I think we'll see just pushing higher. And as long as it can stay above what let's hang on there. Let's do this. 190.37, the bullish picture will be intact. Of course, if it slides back below 196.60, it will come under pressure, but it will be reversed on if it moves back back below 190. So a very strong bullish trend and tries to trend the target. Well, targets are not interesting. It is where the bullish picture is no longer valid, and for that there is no sign that it will reverse anytime soon. So very strong bullish trend on TSM as it looks now. Looking at European semiconductor related companies, we have Dutch ASML holding up about 5.6% today. There were some warnings about that could continue after the RSI was showing positive sentiment. It closed above the cloud here just before Christmas, and it had a little bit of correction, but never closed below the cloud. Tested the lower end a couple of times, but has bounced strongly. And I think now we'll see it in the coming days and weeks, pushing towards 800 and the 200 moving average up here, and these areas here. So I will draw a horizontal line. So around this level there will be some strong resistance, but until then there's really not no resistance until then. If it slides back and closes this gap we created this morning, well, then it will go back in neutral. And if it takes out the lows from last week at 668.40, the downtrend could, or the uptrend here could be reversed to a downtrend. As we can see here on the weekly, well, still negative sentiment, but trust the short-term trend. Of course, it has to start somewhere, and it starts short-term. So up to around the 800 and the 50. Here we have the 55 moving average. So in the cloud area. So that's where I think we will move in the coming days and weeks. Another Dutch company, BE Semiconductor, has been on the move for quite some time after closing above the cloud here way back in November, December, gapping higher above the 200 moving average, pushing higher. And also on the weekly chart, we can see that the RSI 60 has been broken. We are back above that level. Slightly divergent short term, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to, other than we could have a little bit of a setback, but we are in a bullish trend. And I think in the coming weeks and possibly months, well, then there's no strong resistance until around these levels here, just around 170, 171. What is also key to look at is that, let's just draw a trend line while we're at it. This gap area here is about to be closed. If it can close above 140.25, well, it will further confirm the bullish picture, and the strong bullish picture indeed here on the BE Semiconductor. It is not unlikely we could see a setback to test the 200 moving average, but it won't be until taking it out and move back below 125.5 that I will be a little bit worried with the BE Semiconductors. Finally, let's have a look at Infineon, German Infineon. Strong move today, almost 6% higher. If it takes out the peak here just before Christmas at 33.76, well, then it has definitely established the bullish trend that can take it higher towards the 36 level. There's no strong resistance until then if it can take out that. If it slides back and take out the lows here from last week at 30.53, well, then a downtrend will resume, and the bullish picture has totally been demolished weekly. Well, it's really struggling here. We have the 100, we have the 55, we have the 200, and we can see that's why it's struggling at the moment. So keep an eye on, can it get back above that? It will also be, the bullish picture will be supported by RSI if it closes above 60 threshold. So wait and see for that one. It's struggling a little bit at the moment. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and happy trading if you are investing or trading on that. And remember, this is just for educational purpose only, to demonstrate the importance of the trend lines and trends and technical indicators. Talk to you again later.